Hey everybody, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Happy April Fool's Day, happy Easter, depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching it live, if you're watching it on demand, whatever. It's good to see you all. As you can see, I look a little bit different than the last time you saw me. The beard was kind of a fun winter experiment, and I picked a good year to do it because it was a cold winter. But I decided to clog up the bathroom sink a little bit. So welcome to the show. We do have a guest scheduled for today. I'm not sure. He's a very busy gentleman, and so not 100% sure if he's going to be able to make it here or not. So if he makes it, great. If not, I don't know what I'm going to do. I really struggle to fill the time when I'm here by myself. I'm kidding, of course. April Fools. Speaking of April Fools, by the way, I did post something earlier on Facebook. Some people, I think some people didn't know I was kidding, but it's kind of interesting. It's part of the dynamic of being an independent. You know, I posted that I have decided to give in and become a Republican. You know, and my political history, of course, is I was for most of my adult life, I'd been a Democrat up until about the mid-2000s. So I don't know, probably not 10 years ago, but maybe 8 years ago, I decided to become an independent, and I posted today that I finally decided to give in and just become a Republican. That was, of course, I was kidding. Somebody asked me, a friend of mine who also is a viewer and a listener of the show, said, what changed your mind? And I said, well, Ted Cruz, because I think Ted Cruz is probably the greatest leader to emerge since the earth was first created 5,000 years ago. Obviously, anyone who knows me knows I'm kidding, but I'm not sure that my friend who I went to high school with, and he watches the show and listens to the show, and again, you know who you are, and thank you for watching. But I'm not sure. I'm still not sure if he got that I was kidding. But I was. It was an April Fool's joke, and I was not serious. I don't support Ted Cruz, and I'm not becoming a Republican. I can announce, however, though, in all seriousness, and this I didn't post on Facebook, and I haven't even broken the news to Jen yet, but I have decided to become a woman. Maybe we'll get back to that later. But anyway, so good to have you all with me. A little bit of news. We have, in terms of, we'll do the housekeeping like we usually do at the top of the show. I don't know what I'm going to do about my hairy chest, by the way, if I do go through with this procedure. But I got a head start with the shaving. So the radio edition of Unleashed, which is every Tuesday and Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on DKRN.FM. We've also added the live broadcast to IPM Nation as well. So now you have a couple of different ways to hear the show live. We were always live on DKRN.FM, but we also have our new IPM Nation live station at IPMNation.com, which has a lot of really cool programming. It's a really cool mix. We're very proud of it. Jen Coffey and I have been doing a lot of work on it. We had all kinds of shows. We have some shows that are exclusive to IPM. We have some shows that are nationally syndicated that we've added. We also have a lot of music in rotation. It's really, really cool. So check it out. IPMNation.com/live station if you want the direct link. Or you can even go to, if you just go to the homepage on IPM Nation, there's also a mobile site that you can go to if you just want to stream it on your mobile device, quick and easy. So, but we have added Unleashed to the lineup on the live station. So there's a couple of different ways you can hear the show every Tuesday and Thursday night. And what else? Boy, there's been a lot going on. And I'm not stalling for time because our guest isn't here. There's just literally been a lot going on. But I think what we'll do is let's get right into some stuff. On the radio edition of Unleashed last night, Jen and I talked about there's the thing going on in Indiana with the Religious Freedom Reclamation Act and this whole thing about being able to deny service to gay people, and because it's your religious right to do so and all that. And there's also Rand Paul kind of figures into all this, not directly but indirectly, in that Rand Paul, and regular viewers and listeners of the show know, Rand Paul is someone who I've been quite fascinated by. Maybe we'll start with him because one of the things that is interesting to me about Rand Paul is, obviously Rand Paul wants to be president. He wants to be the Republican nominee. He hasn't announced yet. So far, the only one who's announced is Ted Cruz. But I can't even say his name without laughing a little bit. So I think on this show, heretofore, Ted Cruz will be known as Ted Cruz because that seems to be the only way I can say his name. So Rand Paul has not announced. So far, Ted Cruz is the only one who's made his official announcement at Liberty University, where he talked about God and God wants him to run for president and all this. One of the things that's been interesting to me about Rand Paul is how does he sort of thread this needle in order to get to the Republican nomination? Because he's effectively seems to be, or had seemed to be, a libertarian, representing the libertarian wing of the Republican Party. Or so I thought. And I thought, well, how is he going to thread this needle where he has to be true to his libertarian values, kind of like his dad, Ron Paul, while also appearing to be acceptable enough to mainstream conservatives, Christian conservatives, Tea Partiers, although I think the Tea Partiers kind of already like the guy, but more mainstream conservatives who do not share the libertarian view on things. How does he appear acceptable or at least unfrightening to that faction of the party in order to win these primaries and get to the nomination? How does he thread that needle? And I think we have the answer based on some recent statements from him. And it appears to me that the answer is simply he doesn't thread the needle. He's just not going to. He's just going to sort of go hard right, or at least when it comes to things like gay marriage and religion. And this surprised me, and it disappointed me. And I'm not the only one. Jen Coffey and I, we talk about it a lot on the radio edition of Unleashed. And, her and I are kind of in the same situation where, every time Rand Paul does something that makes him seem really appealing as a candidate, he turns around and does something that makes us angry, like recently. Okay, so he co-sponsors this bill with a couple of Democrats, Cory Booker and Kirsten Gillibrand in the Senate. The three of them sponsor this bill together to federally legalize medical marijuana, which I'm absolutely all for. I think anyone with any sense of compassion and empathy and decency for those who are suffering and who are sick should be for. To me, it's common sense. It's a no-brainer. And of course, this has been happening in states all over the country, and even full legalization, or at least decrim, has been happening in a number of states around the country. Personally, I'm for full legalization. But to see this happening finally at the federal level, that really impressed me. And I said, good for Rand Paul. But at the same time he did that, something I was happy about, because it's the first time we've ever seen that happen in D.C. at the federal level, then he signs on. He was one of the 47 jerks who signed that letter, that open letter to the Iranians, which basically said, whatever progress you make with the Obama administration on this nuclear deal, forget it. Because, it doesn't really mean anything. Just a blatant partisan attempt to undermine Obama, which I thought was absolutely hideous. And I was furious at that. Absolutely furious at him for being one of the 47 who signed on to that. Actually, a couple weeks on the show, I talked about it at length. And I picked out, by the way, Marco Rubio was another Republican presidential hopeful who put his name on that letter. So, it's like one step forward, two steps back with this guy. And he certainly is not his father. Here's a couple different places I can go with this. Well, here's the article that if you listen to the radio edition of Unleashed last night, you might have already heard some of this, but let's get into this a little bit more. So, MSNBC, this guy Steve Bannon wrote something, and he's quoting Rand Paul directly. Now, obviously, if it comes from MSNBC, it's going to have a liberal slant. And, I understand that. And I think we all understand that. But, the quotes, when this guy Steve Bannon is quoting Rand Paul, he's quoting him verbatim. But he makes some very good points. He makes some very good counterpoints to what Rand Paul is saying. Rand Paul here sounding very much like a hard right Christian evangelical conservative Republican, not the libertarian who many of us thought he was. So let me read this to you. This is very short. Rand Paul rejects, quote, rights based on your behavior. Now, this is very interesting and frightening and disappointing. When Senator Rand Paul makes public appearances, he routinely likes to tell audiences, quote, you'll find nobody in Congress doing more for minority rights than me right now, Republican or Democrat, unquote. And though the boast itself is dubious, the latest BuzzFeed report raises questions about just how much the Republican senator actually understands minority rights on a conceptual level. And this is from BuzzFeed. Senator Rand Paul said he doesn't buy into the concept of gay rights because they are defined by a gay person's lifestyle. Quote, I don't think I've ever used the word gay rights because I don't really believe in rights based on your behavior, unquote, the Kentucky Republican told reporters in a videotaped interview that has received little attention since it was recorded in 2013. Okay, that's from BuzzFeed. And then back to Steve Bannon's commentary. Admittedly, the senator's quote is a bit old, though it's apparently surfacing in earnest now for the first time. That said, a Rand Paul spokesperson yesterday, quote, did not reply to BuzzFeed News's question seeking clarification on gay people's rights not associated with their behavior, unquote. Regardless, the senator's comments suggest Rand Paul doesn't recognize gay rights as a real issue at all because, in his words, rights based on behavior lack legitimacy. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The Kentucky Republican may not have thought this one through. By Rand Paul's reasoning, gun rights don't exist because buying, carrying, and or firing a weapon is a behavior. By Rand Paul's reasoning, religious rights don't exist because embracing a faith tradition, practicing its tenets, and attending services is a behavior. By Rand Paul's reasoning, free speech rights don't exist because expressing one's opinions and speaking one's mind is a behavior. By Rand Paul's reasoning, voting rights don't exist because participating in an election and exercising the franchise is a behavior. There are a great number of issues the unannounced presidential candidate claims to take seriously, but he does not seem to understand beyond a superficial level. Paul has barely gotten away with this so far. Much of the Beltway media is too preoccupied with how interesting they find him to notice his confusion. But once he's a candidate for national office, this will become much more difficult. So I thought that analysis was great. And I was not familiar prior to reading this with this gentleman, Steve Bannon. Excuse me, I have to do a Rubio. But his analysis is fantastic. The way he blows a hole through Rand Paul's logic. But what I also find troubling about Rand Paul's attitude and surprising, I didn't know he felt this way. When you hear words like lifestyle and behavior, when you hear a person using that terminology when talking about gay and lesbian people, that gives you some insight into what they are saying without them coming right out and saying it, which is that they believe being gay is a choice, that it is a lifestyle choice, that it is a behavior that you choose to engage in, not something you're born with, not something that just happens genetically. And I have always found that idea that it is some sort of choice, that you somehow choose to be gay, to be completely asinine. And I have a hard time understanding the logic of anyone who believes that it's a choice. Now, I understand there are a lot of people, a lot of Christian conservatives, for example, who really cling to their homophobia. There is, after all, an obscure mention, an apparent veiled reference to homosexuality in the Old Testament, which a lot of Christian conservatives cling to as meaning that if you're gay, God will be mad at you. and you're supposed to go see Marcus Bachmann or something, Michelle Bachmann's ambiguously gay husband, and he'll help you pray away the gay and all that. Completely asinine, crazy stuff. Of course, these same Christians ignore everything in the Bible that is even remotely inconvenient to them, but they hyper-focus on this one thing. Because after all, organized religion has nothing to do with God. Organized religion is strictly political, and people use organized religion to reinforce their own political ideology, and they do it, they sort of pick and choose what they like and don't like and whatever fits. And I understand that. I accept that and I recognize that. I know a lot of religious people are completely blind and oblivious and shockingly unself-aware in that area, but whatever gets them through the day, I guess. And I'm not even an atheist. I just find organized religion in so many ways repulsive. I'm getting off on a tangent here, and I apologize. But the thing is, I think the idea that it's a choice is asinine. There's really two reasons why I don't believe it's a choice to be gay. Number one, I didn't choose my sexuality, so why would I presume that gay people choose theirs? You know, I didn't choose to be attracted to females. I just naturally, growing up, you know, you go through your development, you know, you start to have those sexual attractions, and I was just naturally attracted to girls. I never stopped and thought about it. I never made a choice like, which way do I want to go here, you know? I guess I'll like girls. My other male friends, they seem to be attracted to girls. I guess I'll go with that too. I mean, I could go with dudes, but they seem to get made fun of if you're a gay dude. So I'll like girls. But I better make this decision carefully, because whatever I decide right now, I'm stuck with that decision for the rest of my life. So, you know, come on, it doesn't work that way. You're attracted to whoever you're attracted to, and that's just how it works. That's one of the reasons why I've always believed it is not a choice. It's just something that happens. It's genetic or whatever. And the other reason why I believe that people are born that way and it's not a choice is because that's what gay people tell me. And I'm not gay, so I figure they're the experts. I never in my life have heard a gay person say, yeah, I'm just gay because I like being gay, but I could be straight if I wanted to. I could force myself to be attracted to the opposite sex, but I don't want to go for the, gay conversion therapy or whatever, you know, the pray away the gay stuff. I can't really, I don't know, my insurance won't cover it for me to go away to pray away the gay camp with Senator Bachmann's husband. So I'll just keep being gay. Why not? You know, come on. It doesn't work that way. So it's an interesting insight into how Rand Paul feels about gay people when he uses words like behavior and lifestyle. And it's surprising to me. I did not know he felt that way. If he really does feel that way, and perhaps he does not. Excuse me, I've got some Rubio here again. He does not. It's possible that he does not feel that way. It's possible that, again, this is part of threading the needle. This is a big sort of wink and a nod to the conservative wing, the Christian conservatives of the Republican Party, who will continue to use their religion to reinforce their homophobia. You know, because if, for example, if you make a wedding cake for a couple of dudes, the Sky Wizard will be very angry with you, apparently. I guess that's how it works. Here's the other thing that's shown up, and this is from Bloomberg. Rand Paul and the Moral Crisis of Gay Marriage, a timeline. And I have not pre-read this, but this will be kind of interesting because it takes us through the history of Rand Paul's statements on this matter. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what I'm referring to with this, Rand Paul recently spoke at a prayer breakfast where he talked about gay marriage, same-sex marriage, marriage equality, whatever label you want to put on it as a moral crisis in America. This really surprised me, that he would speak in those terms. Again, there is so much momentum now for marriage equality. What are we up to now? 38 states, I think, where gay marriage is legal, and not just, liberal blue states either. It's a lot of red states. It should be pretty clear to everybody who's on the right side of history with this. So I don't even think that there is a long-term political risk in being pro-gay marriage when so much of the country has signed on to this and is fine with it and thinks that it's time. But again, clearly he's trying to appeal to those Christian conservatives. He needs them if he wants to win primaries. I get it. We all know the game. You know, if you're a Republican, you got to tack to the right to win those primaries, energize the base, mobilize the base, raise that money, and then tack to the middle for the general election. That's the game. And of course, Democrats have to do the same thing in reverse, the inverse of it. They got to go as far left as they can to win those primaries and mobilize the base and get people excited and donate money, and then go to the middle to try to win the general election, because the general election is decided by the independents like me. You know, people who, look, Democrats are going to vote Democrat, Republicans are going to vote Republican. You need people like me. You need the independents to win the presidency. Rand Paul isn't winning any points with me, though. This is one independent who is not impressed with the senator. So let's go through this. We'll get to the stuff in Indiana in a minute, and Arkansas, although cooler heads may be prevailing in both states, which is very interesting. But so let's go through the timeline here. Again, this is actually from March 29th, Bloomberg. And the author of this is David Weigel. I am familiar with him somewhat. On Thursday morning, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul spoke at a prayer breakfast inside the Capitol Hill Club, right between the House offices and the Republican National Committee. The Christian Broadcasting Network's David Brody had exclusive access to the meeting and had a camera right on Paul as he urged ministers and activists to battle the moral crisis that has led to mass acceptance of gay marriage. Again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to berate this, but before I go on, he is the last Republican in presidential hopefuls I ever expected this from. Mike Huckabee? Of course. That guy's gonna spew homophobia out any chance he gets. And so is Ted Cruz, and so is Rick Perry, certainly. But Rand Paul, I did not expect this. And he knew a camera was on him, clearly. He knew. It's not like this was a closed-door meeting. Okay, here's what he actually said. Quote, "Don't always look to Washington to solve anything. In fact, the moral crisis we have in our country, there is a role for us trying to figure out things like marriage. There's also a moral crisis that allows people to think that there would be some sort of other marriage. And so, really, there's a role outside and inside government, but the exhortation to sort of change people's thoughts has come through the countryside from outside of Washington," unquote. Notice, and for those who don't know, I'm also I work professionally as a certified hypnotherapist. So I pay special attention to words that people use to appeal to the subconscious mind. And in other words, dog whistle type stuff, which we see a lot of in politics. When he throws in a phrase like that, some sort of other marriage, in other words, it's foreign, it's strange, it's unusual to us. There's something wrong with it. There's something a little off about this other thing. That's I wonder if Frank Lutz is advising this guy. That is a very deliberate use of that word. I guarantee you, he didn't use that phrase, some form of other marriage by accident. That was very deliberate. And that is a dog whistle to Christian conservatives to say to them, I'm with you. I'm creeped out by it too. Believe me, I'm with you. Those damn dirty gays wanting the same rights as everybody else. I'm with you. Wink, wink. Sorry, I digress again, as I often do. The video was flagged by People for the American Way's Right-Wing Watch. By the way, rightwingwatch.org, fantastic website, but frightening at the same time. Go there and you'll see what I mean. Which, unlike Brody, saw the moral crisis quote as the news. 2 days on, CBN's version of the video has been taken offline. The Right-Wing Watch video remains and has been covered as a pre-presidential bid Rand Paul flip-flop. They say, quote, "It seems the pressure to be all things to all people is resulting in the breakdown of his political brand," unquote, wrote Olivia Nuzzi, or however you say that, in the Daily Beast. And again, remember, he's trying to thread that needle, but he's not doing it very skillfully. Yet Rand Paul really hasn't changed in 5.5 years of discussing gay marriage. So this is all very surprising to me. He entered politics after the marriage issue had stopped being a bona fide national winner for Republicans. The Federal Marriage Amendment, I don't know why I threw act on there, which had, I know why, because in my mind, I'm conflating it with the Defense of Marriage Act, which Bill Clinton signed into law, DOMA, or as I like to call it, the Indefensible Defense of Marriage Act. I was angry with Clinton at the time over that, and I never really let him off the hook for it in my mind. The Federal Marriage Amendment, which had been supported by most GOP members of Congress in 2004, though not by Texas Congressman Ron Paul, the senator's father — again, remember, Rand is not his father in many ways — has not been reintroduced since Paul got to the Senate. Paul's been consistent on 3 points. 1, that his own view of marriage is irrelevant. 2, what matters is that states get to define marriage. And 3, since you asked, he thinks gay marriage is morally wrong. Now that's interesting. Number 2 is okay, sort of. Letting states get to define marriage, okay, that's a federalist attitude. I generally agree with that, although I would like to see something done at the federal level, and I want to see DOMA just completely go away. And of course, number 3, I don't agree with him at all. I don't see anything wrong with gay marriage. I would like government out of marriage completely, but let's go through the timeline. October 19th, 2009, in an interview with the Louisville Courier-Journal's Joe Girth, candidate Rand Paul says he's not interested in passing federal laws against gay marriage. Okay, that's good. He said, quote, "I think marriage should be taken care of at the state level." Asked if states should legalize gay marriage, he said, "I don't really have a position that I'm willing to make on that." Kind of the Bill O'Reilly attitude. Bill O'Reilly, he has no particular strong feelings on the matter, which surprised me to learn that. I would assume he'd be against gay marriage, but he's actually agnostic on the issue. 5 years earlier, Kentucky voters had amended the state constitution to define marriage as between one man and one woman. A few months later, Rand Paul's unsuccessful primary foe put the gay marriage answer onto a website about Paul's strange views. But Paul won that election and went on to face and defeat Democratic Attorney General Jack Conway, who did not make gay marriage an issue. May 12th, 2012, Paul speaks to the Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition days after President Obama proclaims that he has evolved on gay marriage and now supports it. He said, quote, he jokes, quote, "He said his views were evolving on marriage. Call me cynical, but I wasn't sure that his views on marriage could get any gayer," unquote. I guess that's kind of funny. Obviously, he was making a joke there. The tone-deaf gayer joke makes the headlines, but just seconds later, Rand Paul explains that conservatives need to be tolerant of other people while never giving up on their belief that gay behavior is wrong. He says, quote, "We understand sin. If we understand that it's a sin, we understand that people sin," unquote. So he's one of them. He's one of the Christian conservatives. Who knew? I swear, I had no idea. But apparently he's been talking this way all along. I'm still surprised and disappointed. January 30th, 2013, Rand Paul appears on Focal Point, the radio show of the American Family Association's Brian Fisher. By the way, I've said it before, I believe the American Family Association is a hate group. The way they talk about gay people, the way Brian Fisher talks about gay people, should I use the word heretic? I'll use a religious term. So how anyone could appear on Brian Fisher's show, he loses even more points with me just for going on that show. He went on that show to clarify he wants states to decide their marriage laws. Almost like he's trying to have it both ways. Okay, this is what he said on that show. Quote, I'm not sure exactly how I'd come down on the federalization part. My fear is that in federalizing it, we're going to lose the battle for the whole country. In keeping it state by state, which is the way marriage has always been adjudicated, we'll have states that continue to have traditional marriage. I think we're losing in large areas of the country now. If the urban areas are able to dictate for the rest of the country what our definition of marriage is, I'm really concerned about that, unquote. Wow. Well, he was really playing to that audience, huh? He's good at that. March 3rd, 2013. At a roundtable with reporters, I asked Rand Paul, so this is the author of this article, Dave Weigel, asked Rand Paul about his ambition of winning back voters in blue states, how his ambition of winning back those voters clashes with an issue like gay marriage. And he said, quote, I'm not going to change who I am or what I believe in. I am an old-fashioned traditionalist. I believe in the historical definition of marriage. That being said, I think contracts between adults, I'm not for, you know what? I don't even want to read the rest of this quote. It's long and who cares? It's just more of the same. And then there's stuff he said here in June of 2013. Oh, here we go. This is, the Defense of Marriage Act is struck down by the Supreme Court, and Paul goes on Glenn Beck's radio show to explain his own views on what happened. And he said, quote, again, he's talking to Glenn Beck. This is in front of a conservative audience. He said, quote, it is difficult because we have no laws on this. People take it to one extension further. Oh, because if we have no laws on this, people take it to one extension further. Does it have to be? Oh, God, this argument really drives me nuts. Okay, here it is. Does it have to be humans? You know, I mean, I'm not even going to read the rest of this. Does it have to be humans? In other words, this is that argument Rick Santorum made. If we allow gay people to marry each other, then someone could marry their dog, someone could marry their cat, someone could marry their cow. Anyone who makes that argument, I'm just going to say this, I try to be respectful of other people's views. Anyone who makes that particular argument is an absolute moron. You cannot marry someone unless they consent to marrying you. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure somewhere on YouTube, someone has an adorable video of a cat that sounds like it says, I do, when it meows. But an animal cannot consent to marrying you. An animal cannot walk down that aisle up to the altar and do the whole marriage vows and say, I do. An animal can't do that. Do you know why? Because animals don't speak. So I want to be really clear about this. Anyone who makes that particular argument clearly has something wrong. There is something wrong in your brain. If you're really that stupid, just please don't breed. I don't know if Rand Paul has any children, but he is much, much dumber than I ever imagined, or he is assuming in this instance that Glenn Beck's audience is much, much dumber than anyone would have ever guessed. But that is the most asinine argument. Whenever I hear someone make that argument, I'm not a violent person. I'm a very peaceful guy. I've never even really been in a real fight. But when somebody makes that argument, I just want to punch them in the face just for being that stupid. Oh, what if then you can marry your dog? Beyond that, I have no strong feelings on the matter. I can't believe he went with that. What if it's not humans? Screw you. I mean, what a moron. He lost any goodwill I ever would have had for that guy. You know, look, we had Rich Girard on this show once. This was a while ago, a couple of years ago. And, you know, he and I disagree on gay marriage. He opposes gay marriage. But you know what? I can at least have some respect for Rich Girard's argument. Rich Girard made a legal, constitutional argument. You know, he brought up this wedding cake maker in Oklahoma who got sued and lost a lot of money because she wouldn't make a wedding cake for a couple gay dudes, whatever. You know, there was this, he presented an argument about redefining marriage and the legal problems with that constitutionally, et cetera. And he talked very fast, and I'll admit, I mean, he's a very good debater. He's a sharp guy. Again, I completely disagree with his position, but I could at least respect his argument. He's talking about the legal ramifications of it. He's talking about whether or not it's even constitutional. He's making a reasonable, intelligent argument against gay marriage. I disagree with his position, but I can totally respect his argument at least. But when someone does the whole, marry an animal thing, I have zero respect for that argument, and I have zero respect for anyone who says that. I'm sorry, now I'm repeating myself. It just infuriates me. So now let's kind of move away from Rand Paul and get to this RFRA, the Religious Freedom Reclamation Act. So unless you've been in a cave, you're aware of what's been going on in Indiana. Governor Mike Pence, of course, Republican governor there. Excuse me. Time for Rubio. Here's, you probably, I think everyone already kind of knows what's going on here, but without getting too far into the weeds of what exactly it is. I mean, basically the idea is to protect people's religious freedom, so that the wedding cake maker in Oklahoma, for example, so we prevent further scenarios like that where, someone refuses to make a wedding cake for a gay couple and then the gay couple turns around and sues the wedding cake maker. Something about that example that's interesting to me. People who support things like RFRA claim that Christianity is under assault and everyone's religious freedom is under assault and we have to protect these people. But I have noticed for several years now that when I hear this argument that everyone's religious freedom and freedom of association is under threat by these horribly frightening, sinful gay people, I keep hearing the same example over and over again. The reason I keep mentioning the wedding cake maker in Oklahoma who got sued is because that's the same example I hear everyone else give. I hear the same example over and over and over again, several years on, which makes me suspect that this occurrence of someone being sued by gay people for not wanting to provide them with a wedding cake or JP services at their wedding or whatever it may be, I'm kind of thinking that the reason I keep hearing the same example over and over again, and I'm not hearing any new ones, is because it probably doesn't happen a whole lot. And if something doesn't happen a whole lot, if it's extremely rare, I wonder, do we really need more laws? Do we really need a law that protects you from this? Now, look, let me be clear. Obviously, I'm pro-gay marriage. However, I do have some mixed feelings here with this because this issue is more complicated than either side wants to make it, okay? The people who are in favor of things like RFRA, it's not just people who are concerned about their religious freedom being under attack, which again, I don't really think it is. This whole war on religion thing, I think is so incredibly overblown. And exaggerated, but there is also the issue on their side. There are issues of free association. In other words, you might not be religious at all, but you might be concerned about any time, any situation where the government is directly telling you in your business how to conduct your business and who it's okay to do business with, and that it's never okay to turn anyone away. And that can be a problem, because, for example, Jen last night on the radio edition of Unleashed, we were talking about this, and she gave the example of, well, what if somebody from the KKK comes to you and they want you to make a wedding cake for them for their wedding, and they want the candles to look like little burning crosses or something. Shouldn't you have the right to turn them away? And say, you're evil, go kill yourselves, I'm not making you a cake. And yes, you should have that right. So, there is that argument to be made. So it is more complicated on that side. It's also more complicated on the side of people who oppose laws like this. It's, let me say this. I'm not thrilled with the idea of again, because it's the only example I know about. I'm not thrilled with the idea of the wedding cake maker in Oklahoma being sued out of her business and losing her livelihood just because she's a dumb homophobe. I would rather that not happen. I'm not going to wish that on her. But at the same time, this is kind of my bottom line on the whole thing. I really, really wish that in the year 2015, that we as a society, as a culture, as a civilization, could finally get past all the anti-gay stuff, all the homophobia. I know that Christians, a lot of Christians, and I call them ironic Christians, Christ himself wasn't really into ostracizing people or demeaning people. Christ hung out with the prostitutes and the thieves and whoever else, and tried to set an example for them. He didn't condemn them. He didn't ostracize them. He wanted to set an example for them and actually interact with them. And, the whole thing about judgment, he among you who has not sinned may cast the first stone and all that. All that stuff that Christ tried to teach us that Christians love to ignore. Again, I call them ironic Christians because what did Gandhi say? I'm paraphrasing, but something like, Christianity is a great idea. Someone should try it. Christians love to revel in this very un-Christ-like behavior, but if you go to church on Sunday and you get the wafer, I guess that makes you a good Christian and you're all set. You can act as un-Christ-like as you want. Go ahead and do the exact opposite of what Christ said. You go ahead and condemn people and hate people who are different from you and all that. That's all good. As long as you get the wafer every Sunday, maybe have a sip of the wine, you're good, baby. You're going to the pearly gates when you leave this realm. But I just want everybody just grow up. Just grow up and get past it. I'm not saying don't be religious. Believe whatever you want. I don't care. But don't keep using your religion to justify your homophobia. It's dumb. Everybody who does that, y'all look like a bunch of knuckle draggers. No offense. I know you don't believe in evolution because evolution involves science, and science is like some sort of sorcery because it's not in the Bible. So I don't mean to offend your sensibilities. If you really feel that you have to be mean to gay people because of some obscure passage in the Old Testament, that you just cling to while ignoring absolutely everything in the Bible that is even remotely inconvenient to you. And by the way, it's kind of funny that the whole gay thing is so important when it's not even mentioned in the Ten Commandments and all the stuff Jesus said about gay people. Oh, that's right. Jesus never said anything about gay people. But, you cling to that if your hate is so important to you. Go ahead, hate gay people, do whatever. But stop using the law to hurt them. That you're not entitled to. You're not entitled to use the law to hurt them, to hurt anybody. Just stop it. Just grow up. You can continue to have that hate in your heart. If you really believe that carrying around hatred in your heart for people who are different from you, if you really believe that that's going to get you into heaven, if you really believe that the invisible sky wizard wants you to somehow hate people who are different and that somehow is doing the work of God, if you're so twisted and screwed up and unself-aware that you really believe that, go on believing that. Just stop using the law to advance your stupid, knuckle-dragging, homophobic, racist, bigoted, whatever agenda. It's just old. It's 2015. We should be embarrassed. Humanity should be embarrassed that we're not past this yet. I mean, come on. Don't some of you even feel a little bit embarrassed, a little bit ashamed that you're still carrying this stuff around? We don't need laws telling people it's okay to discriminate against people. The civil rights movement, the 1960s. Come on. Have we not gotten any further in that time? I mean, what's next? You're going to make, we let African Americans sit in the front of the bus and use the same water fountains. Maybe now we got to segregate the gays. So we'll put the gays in the back of the bus and we'll make them use separate water fountains. After all, we don't want them spreading their gay around. And God forbid, if you have children in school, you don't want children to even know that gay people exist. So we got to keep that under wraps because what do I always hear? If you allow children to even hear about homosexuality, they'll start to think that it's normal. They'll start to accept it. Granted, it is normal for people who happen to be gay, and gay people do exist and will continue to exist no matter how much some of you want to pretend that they don't. We got to just get past it. I mean, it's so dumb. It is all so stupid. Just let everybody be who they are. Just let everybody be who they are and be happy, and the world will be a much more pleasant place. If everybody would just let everybody be who they are and be happy, and they're not hurting you. Do you somehow honestly believe, if you're a Christian conservative person and you're married, do you honestly believe in your heart that a couple of dudes going and getting hitched somehow affects your marriage? Because I got to tell you, you probably don't have a lot of faith in your own marriage, a lot of confidence in your own marriage if you honestly think that somebody else getting married and you don't approve of that particular arrangement, if you somehow think that that threatens your marriage. This idea that we have to protect the institution of marriage from gay people, because if we allow gays to marry, that weakens the institution. No, it doesn't. If they want to participate, then that strengthens the institution of marriage, not weakens it. Oh, and we have to protect the sanctity of marriage. The sanctity of your marriage is dependent on you. It is not dependent on the government. By the way, I love these Christian conservative Republicans. They're all about, we got to get the government out of everything. You know, the government interferes. Can't have the government interfere. Oh, except when it comes to things like marriage. Oh, we have to make sure that the government keeps marriage exactly the way we want it, and we want it this way. Your own marriage is not threatened by whatever else happens with marriage. Worry about your own marriage. You know, even before we started allowing same-sex marriage in this country, for as long as I've been alive, the divorce rate in this country has been over 50%. Well over 50% at certain points. You know, so what exactly are you trying to protect here? You know, we live in an era where we have reality shows like Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire or The Bachelor. You can go to Las Vegas and do a drive-through wedding if you want to. Oh, but we have to protect the sanctity of marriage. What sanctity? Whatever sanctity a marriage has is up to you, the person participating in your own marriage. You treat your marriage with whatever level of sanctity you feel it deserves. And personally, I've never been married, but part of the reason why I've never been married, one of the reasons is I take the idea of marriage so seriously that I would never get married unless I felt it was absolutely, I guess you can never be 100% sure, but I'd have to be 99% sure that this was something I wanted and that I wanted to be married and I wanted to enter a marriage with this person. Because to me, marriage does have a certain sanctity to it and it should be taken extremely seriously. And it is something to be celebrated. And it is a good thing, especially if you're going to have kids, if you're raising kids, you know, I think getting married is a good thing to do. And I believe in family. You know, some people might think I'm somehow anti-family for being pro-gay marriage. No, I'm very pro-family. I just don't believe that a family necessarily has to be a conventional family. By the way, speaking of family, studies have shown that children of gay parents grow up to do very well and be very successful. I know that Christian conservatives who hear that will just scoff and say, oh, well, obviously some liberal made up that survey. When you present these people with facts, they always fall back on that. Well, obviously it's some liberal or it's the liberal media making things up again to destroy religion. Why are people so insecure in their own marriage and in their own faith that they have to worry so much about what everybody else is doing and how it's going to somehow destroy them. Don't worry about it. You just hate gay people all you want to. And just be secure in the knowledge that your hatred of gays is going to somehow get you into heaven. Don't worry about everybody else. Now, in addition to what's been happening in Indiana, Mike Pence, the governor there, is kind of putting the brakes on and saying, whoa, wait a minute, we're getting all this bad press and it's beginning to impact us economically and whatnot. So now we need to amend this law. So he's giving in and saying we need to amend this law to make it so that it explicitly dictates you cannot discriminate against gay people, which makes me say, what the hell is the point of the law to begin with? So now you're going to amend the law to make the law completely meaningless. So why not, unless you're a big government conservative, which a lot of these people are, they'll tell you how much they hate big government, but there are a lot of big government conservatives. I don't know enough about Mike Pence's record to know, but if he is a big government conservative, maybe that's why he thinks we need this stuff. We're almost out of time, but we have time for a call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's on the line? Hello? That was the Phantom. It's probably somebody sitting at home freaking out over the idea of gay people raising children because I made that gay adoption reference. Oh my God. That child's going to grow up thinking it's normal to be gay. Worse, that child's going to grow up gay. Something similar now is happening. We're almost out of time, but I'll mention this briefly. In Arkansas, I just saw this pop up on HuffPost. Arkansas governor says he won't sign the religious freedom bill until changes are made. So this is the Indiana effect. Let's just take a look at this briefly. We're almost out of time, but I just want to get a quick snapshot of this. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, Republican, said on Wednesday he would not yet sign a controversial Religious Freedom Act into law, requesting that the state legislature make changes to the bill in the wake of criticism that the legislation could be used to facilitate discrimination against LGBT citizens and other groups. Hutchison said at a press conference that he was seeking changes to make Arkansas's legislation mirror the federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act signed by former President Bill Clinton in 1993. I forgot about that Clinton had signed that. Hutchison, that was one of his compromises with Republicans when he was, when Newt Gingrich and the Republicans gained power. He had no choice but to work with them and to compromise and kind of govern from the middle. But Clinton's idea of governing from the middle was not really so much governing from the middle, but I'll govern from the left on some things, but I'll just go hard right on some others. Again, I mentioned DOMA. He also signed that into law. Absolutely reprehensible in my view. Hutchison previously had promised to sign the legislation. The surprising announcement came a day after Indiana Governor Mike Pence was forced to defend a similar law in his state. After facing a national firestorm, Pence called on Tuesday for new legislation that would clarify that this law does not grant businesses the right to deny services to anyone. There's obviously a lot more to this, but we're out of time. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. Sorry our guest didn't make it, but we have fun anyway, right? I'm going to get some hate mail about, or the modern equivalent of some Facebook posts about today's show. No doubt about it, but that's okay. It's called Unleashed for a reason, my friends. So that'll do it for now. Don't forget, of course, the radio edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed every Tuesday and Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can hear that on both DKRN.FM and also on the new IPM Nation live station at IPMNation.com. Tomorrow night on the show, our guest will be the Honorable John Heichel, owner of Uptown Auto Repair, and of course a former New Hampshire state legislator. The IPM Nation live station, of course, does broadcast from the Uptown Auto Repair studio in Manchester, New Hampshire, and we are powered by the Atlas Society. So check that out. And I'm now talking very quietly, so I don't have to do another Rubio before signing off because my throat's killing me. But If you're watching live on Wednesday, I'll be back later with Gary for Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, and today's program will be up and available on demand by 10 p.m. tonight. And that's it for now. I'll talk to you all later. Thanks.